welcome to Standoff. Standoff is me trying to incorporate more things into my Twitch channel and my YouTube channel. There's a lot of games that I play that I just don't stream because I don't know if my audience will enjoy it, and I want to start bringing those in because that is keeping me away from streaming sometimes, and I want to start making more YouTube content, getting better at editing. So this is sort of doing two things at once. I'm gonna try and edit these videos a lot more. They won't have the animated bits like I want to start doing in my Twitch VODs, but we'll see. Anyways, Standoff is talking about one of my favorite games on Roblox, which is called A Universal Time. It's a JoJo fighting game that has a large choice of stands, powers, and specs from all sorts of media, but something I've noticed is you rarely see a lot of those powers and specs and stands in the 1v1s game mode. 1v1s is after in A Universal Time, you collect your stand, you pick which one you want to play, you queue up for 1v1s, which is just a sandbox fighting game. You'll see a lot of gameplay of that in the background, like you will right now and such. So with this series, I just want to talk about why stands aren't used. I want to talk if it's justified that certain stands don't get used that often, ones that do get used too often if they're not as good as people say, and just sort of trying to rank everything and talking about the stands that are standoffish. And I'd also like to recommend buffs, nerfs, and all sorts of recommendations to each ability. That way I'm not just going, stand sucks, and then not giving any reason or explanation or talking about it at all. Starting this series, I had a lot of choices in mind, and there's just so many specs in a Universal Time that you rarely see. But the one I settled on may be a big surprise, as you watch me turn into an alien before your very eyes as we talk about the Omnitrix. So this is basically the move showcase, and starting off with Diamond Head. Diamond Head's moves are, if you hit E, you put them inside of a crystallization. Inside of the crystallization, you can actually keep punching them. I'll go ahead and show that off right now. So when you crystallize, you can actually combo off of it. His R is this ground pound attack that does 40 damage every time. So a kind of good idea, just because it's a little difficult to hit, is this, and then beat the opponent. His T is a heavy swing, two heavy swings that follow. Once again, his T is a heavy swing. Alrighty, next you got Heatblast. Heatblast is interesting. If you press E, he throws out all of these fireballs, and the fireballs will do lingering flame damage. All of Heatblast's moves actually do lingering flame damage besides his M1s. His R move is actually just a bigger fireball that does more damage and catches the opponent on fire, does 40 damage, and then builds up. And then lastly, you have his T move, which T is a barrage of hits that end with a final slam attack. This can actually be used in barrages. Just before you get caught in one, it bypasses stun. Alright, I can't show it there. Let me try one more time. Yeah. Okay, so you saw it a little, but even when you're getting barraged or hit, your move will still continue to come out. So it's pretty good if you know that your opponent's too close and you're going to press T during his barrage, because the last hit, that move has knockback that'll send your opponent away, creating some distance between you and sometimes saving you from the barrage. Last up, we have Accelerate. Accelerate is a little bugged at the moment, which hopefully gets fixed, but his E move is a punch that turns into a swarm that does a decent amount of damage. His R move is basically a time stop. It's a very strange time stop where you keep your speed, but there's currently a bug going on right now where the game can bug out like this, and now I can't swap forms, and I can't actually do anything. It varies on whether or not it happens. I've played quite a few PvP matches where I can use the move effectively, and after I use the move, you hit normally, like it's nothing, and you can swap moves this and that, or sometimes you're just stuck in this super speed mode, and during this, your opponent that you use the move on is invincible, but if he respawns or something, then they're not invincible. Honestly, I just say if this happens, respawn. Just reset. It was kind of your fault anyways. Okay. Lastly, you have Accelerate's T move, which are quick swings, 2 quick little jabs. Moving on from the movement section and the controls, I would like to talk about gameplay and the general loop that you kind of feel with a lot of these characters. While you're using the omnitrix, you are constantly playing the game. You need to be constantly swapping what alien you are. You also need to keep in mind your moves that are on cooldown, which is something else that's really cool, is that your moves have different cooldowns between all the aliens. So, even though you used your E as Diamond Head, that doesn't mean that your E move with Accelerate or Heatblast is on cooldown, meaning that if you swap between aliens constantly, you can keep applying that pressure. Something else to keep in mind is all aliens have different amounts of health. Diamond Head has 500 HP, Heatblast has 450, Accelerate has 425, and your base form has 375. So what this means is while you're in a fight, you need to think about when you want to take a beating. Something I recommend that's a lot easier said than done is being Diamond Head anytime your opponent is going to stop time or use a beatdown. Diamond Head is sort of the sponge of the group and has a lot more health and can take a lot more of a beating. Talking a little more about what I said earlier, your moves should never be on cooldown in theory. You should always be swapping what alien you are to keep applying pressure. I would say personally Heatblast is the most effective with this, as his burn damage and his barrage of hits that hit through moves are very effective tools to always be doing damage to your opponent. Accelerate has a really hard time getting this damage in because his moves are very difficult to hit, but if you can land his E move in particular and use that whirlwind, you are secured with so much damage. And if your opponent decides to block that move, they actually just get block broken. Just an immediate block broken that you can get free M1s off of, as well as your beatdown. So, or sorry, your barrage beatdown. So that's super helpful. Diamond Head is more of the damage sponge, like I already said, as all of his moves are very difficult to hit, but just like Accelerate, if you can hit them, they're very hard punishes. Diamond Heads in particular, if you can land the crystallization, you're guaranteed the other move, the ground slam attack, and then you can combo it with M1s. So he sort of auto combos his moves together, which is really good, and it does so much damage, but man, is it difficult to hit. Main thing you just want to keep in mind is Heatblast is your main, and then decide from there of what happens depending on how many moves you hit, how much distance you have on your opponent and such, if you need to swap to Accelerate or Diamond Head based on the situation. But one thing is certain, do not get caught in your base form. You can't do anything in your base form but M1, and you have the lowest amount of health. Do not get caught in base form. You can't do anything but M1, and you have the lowest amount of health. That just punishes all your other forms super harshly for every hit you take in your base form. So, when you swap, don't be an idiot. Gain a little bit of distance on your opponent, please. Moving on lastly to my personal thoughts on the unit and what changes I'd make to it. Personally, I think the amount of moves attached to all the aliens is fine enough. Accelerate and Diamond Head moves are far too difficult to hit, but the damage is insane, so it balances out. Heatblast does fine enough damage with his burns and such. They're pretty easy to hit, and he's a good base unit to be. However, I would very much encourage the devs to add like a quest or just change the base form to add the ultimate omnitrix, which I think could be really cool, allowing all of your aliens to go ultimate at the press of a button. This, I think, should be a universal cooldown in my opinion. That way you can't just swap and then swap again to another ultimate and then swap again to another ultimate. I'm not too sure how it would work, but I would very much encourage it just to add in a few more moves. It would make the Diamond Head section maybe giving him more moves that are easier to hit, and also adding Accelerate, making him more faster at base speed, I think would be really cool. Or alternatively, they could just add more aliens in general. Ben 10 has so many creative and unique aliens to take inspiration from, and it's really criminal that a lot of them aren't in here. Something I'd recommend is adding forearms and giving him a lot of a grappler type personality where he can grab your opponent and throw them, sort of like what Broly does with a lot of his moves. Or maybe even adding feedback to give another ranged unit that does electrical damage. Maybe giving him some auto-aim with his tools, but they do little damage, so would you like to be that? And the last one I could think of off the top of my head is Firefly. I think Firefly could be super fun to have a flying type opponent that flies around the arena, is a little difficult to hit, but also can't do anything when they're flying. It would be a good mobility choice, which if they're not going to make Accelerate the mobility choice, then something has to be. Because Ben 10 needs distance in a lot of situations to swap aliens. Something else that I would recommend is if you gave Ben an awakening when his health was low enough. This change, in theory, should be when your health is at 125% or 125 points, or however you want to measure it. That's not up to me. I would say that you can activate a button if you press V while you're in your base form to activate the Master Control. Master Control, in theory, or at least in my theory, I guess, would make it so you can swap between your aliens without going back to base form. And I think that would be so great. You'd have such low health that it wouldn't matter all that much. But if you can get a kill off it, then your next life, you've got a decent amount of health. You've got about half your health there. And you're also still in Master Control mode. I think it should have a cooldown that also is how much time it is. Because it's not broken enough, like UI Goku, where the cooldown needs to be separate from how much time it is. But it still shouldn't be there when you're at nearly full health. But I think it could be a lot of fun to be able to swap what alien you are without actually changing aliens. And then it would just make the combat much more fluent with your aliens. However, I feel the Omnitrix is fair enough how it is, with some minor changes, and the only things you really can do is adding more aliens to it. I feel like it's a great stand, great spec overall, and I feel like it should be utilized much more in PvP. And hey, with your help, it can. If you like this video, if you could share it around, show the support, and maybe we'll get more Ben 10 forms in the Universal Time, then, you know, I'd greatly appreciate it. This is sort of my first time doing a scripted video ever. I a lot of time do live commentary, and there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to change, and I'd also like other people's thoughts on what I should and shouldn't change. Some things I should bring back. Like I said, I'd like to do a video a week. I think that'd be a fun thing. One of these videos once every week talking about a stand in a Universal Time. But yeah. Anyways, see y'all next time and have a wonderful day.